There's a good chance a woman in your life right now is showing you exactly how she feels about you, and you haven't noticed it once. Not because you aren't paying attention, not because you don't care, but because the way women communicate attraction doesn't look anything like what most men expect it to look like. You've been trained by culture, by movies, by years of experience to wait for something obvious. A direct statement, a clear move, an unmistakable signal. And while you've been waiting for that, something else has been happening right in front of you. There is a reason women don't simply say what they feel. It isn't games, it isn't cruelty. It is something that runs far deeper than that. Something built into how attraction actually works for them, at a level most men never get to see. And the result is that her signals look, to the untrained eye, like nothing at all. Like ordinary behavior, like coincidence, like friendliness. By the end of this video, that changes. I'm going to show you 3 specific signs, not theories, not guesses, that a woman displays when she genuinely wants you. You will understand why she shows them this way instead of simply telling you. And the next time you are in the room with her, you will see what you have always been missing. She's not being mysterious to confuse you. She's being careful because the cost of being wrong for her is something most men have never had to calculate. Think about what it actually requires for a woman to express attraction directly. She has to be willing to be wrong about how you feel. She has to risk the possibility that you don't feel the same way, and then continue existing in whatever shared space the two of you occupy after that moment. A workplace, a social group, a friendship that has been years in the making. The cost of a misread for her lands differently than it does for a man. The social exposure is different. The judgment she risks from others is different. And so, almost universally, she finds another way. What she does instead is what behavioral researchers describe as indirect signaling, the transmission of genuine emotional information through behavior that can always be walked back if necessary. Psychologists sometimes call this plausible deniability. And it isn't manipulation. It is self-protection operating in real time. She gives you something real, wrapped in something that looks ordinary enough that if you don't respond, she can pretend it was never there. This is the architecture beneath all 3 signs you are about to learn. Every single one of them is real. Every single one of them is intentional, even when she doesn't consciously realize she's doing it. And every single one of them has a built-in exit, a way for her to retreat if the moment asks her to. Understanding this is not optional context. It is the entire reason these signs look the way they do. Once this lands, once you genuinely absorb the idea that she is communicating precisely and carefully rather than randomly, everything else becomes readable in a way it never was before. One more thing before we move forward. These signs are not proof of anything on their own. One instance in one moment doesn't tell you much. What you are looking for is a pattern, consistent, repeated behavior that shows up across different contexts and different days. That is where the signal becomes clear. The first sign becomes almost impossible to miss if you know what it actually looks like. The first sign isn't something she says. It isn't even something she does exactly. It's something she arranges quietly, repeatedly, and almost always without realizing she's doing it. When a woman is drawn to a man, she begins to unconsciously engineer situations where the two of them are physically closer. Researchers refer to this as proximity-seeking behavior, a term that describes the deeply human tendency to reduce the physical distance between yourself and someone who feels emotionally significant to you. It is not a decision she makes consciously. It is something her nervous system moves her toward, the way you instinctively lean in when someone says something you want to hear. What this looks like in practice is specific. If there are several empty seats in a room and she consistently chooses the one nearest to you, that is not coincidence. If a conversation is naturally ending and she finds a reason to extend it, a follow-up question, a second thought, something she almost forgot to mention, She is keeping proximity alive for a few more minutes because something in her doesn't want to lose it. If she finds reasons to re-enter a space you're already in, reasons that aren't strictly necessary, that pattern is telling you something. The detail that separates chosen proximity from situational proximity is repetition across different contexts. Anyone might end up near you once. Twice could still be chance. But when it keeps happening, when you notice that she has consistently positioned herself closer to you than the situation required, you are no longer looking at coincidence. You are looking at a preference she is acting on. Now, you might be thinking, couldn't this just be her personality? Some people are naturally more physically present than others. And yes, that is true. This is exactly why context matters. The question is not whether she stands close to people in general. The question is whether she stands closer to you than she does to others in the same room. That differential, the gap between how she behaves with you versus how she behaves with everyone else, is where the signal lives. The most common mistake men make with this sign is interpreting it as friendliness and nothing more. She keeps ending up near me because we get along. She extended the conversation because she's a sociable person. Both of those explanations might feel logical, but they explain away the pattern instead of reading it. Proximity that is accidental happens unevenly. Proximity that is desired happens with a consistency that, once you start noticing it, becomes very difficult to explain as anything else. Proximity gets her near you. But the second sign is what happens once she's there, and it's where most men look directly at it and still don't see it. She listens to everyone. But she listens to you differently, and the difference is specific enough that once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. Attraction at a neurological level changes the quality of attention a person is capable of giving. When the brain registers someone as emotionally significant, as someone who matters, it allocates cognitive resources differently. It remembers more, it notices more, it prioritizes. This isn't a romantic idea. It is a measurable shift in how the mind processes the presence of one person versus another, and it produces behavior that is observable if you know where to look. What it looks like when a woman is genuinely attracted to you is this. She remembers the specific things you've said, not the general topic, but the actual detail. She brings it back unprompted, days later, in a way that tells you she was still thinking about it after the conversation ended. She responds to you more fully than she responds to others. More words, more eye contact, more follow-through. She asks questions that require you to go deeper, not questions that keep the conversation at the surface. And she does this not because you are the most objectively interesting person in the room, but because her attention has already decided that you are. The comparison test is the most reliable way to see this clearly. Watch how she engages with other men in the same conversation or the same room. Is her level of presence the same? Does she track their words the same way she tracks yours? Does she remember what they said the way she remembers what you said? When the answer is no, when the difference in quality is visible, that difference is the signal. Of course, some people are naturally attentive and warm with everyone they meet. This is a real thing, and it matters. What you are looking for is not attentiveness in general. What you are looking for is a specific kind of attentiveness that exists only in the direction of you. The kind that makes you feel like the most interesting person in the room, not because she's performing that for you, but because for her, in that moment, you genuinely are. Before we move to the third sign, there is one additional layer to this that most explanations skip over entirely. The attention she gives you isn't just about listening. It also shows up in timing. If she responds to a message faster than she responds to others, consistently, not just once, that speed is attention made visible. She is not waiting to seem less eager. That calculation isn't operating. She just responds, because your message mattered more. The first two signs are things she does in the moment. The third one is different. It's something she does to time itself, and it's the one almost nobody talks about. Remember what I told you at the start? That there was one signal most men not only miss, but actively misread as something else. We are getting close to it now. The third sign is the one that's hardest to fake because it doesn't show up in what she says or even what she does. It shows up in what she refuses to let end. When a woman is genuinely drawn to a man, she begins unconsciously protecting the time they share. She does not rush toward the exit. She does not let her attention drift toward her phone. She does not look for the polite moment to wrap things up and leave. Instead, something quieter happens. The conversation reaches its natural endpoint, and she doesn't take it. She finds something else to say. She introduces a new thread. She stays. Not because she has to, but because she is not ready for whatever this is to stop. This is what psychologists call temporal investment, the unconscious allocation of one of the most honest resources a person has, which is their time. People do not linger where they don't want to be. Not really. Social obligation can keep someone present for a fixed period, but it rarely keeps someone present past the moment when leaving becomes reasonable. When she stays past that moment, when she finds reasons to extend rather than reasons to exit, she is telling you something that she may not yet be ready to say out loud. What this looks like specifically is worth describing in detail because it is easy to miss if you are not watching for it. She says she should probably get going, and then she doesn't. She says it again 10 minutes later, and she still doesn't leave. She picks up her bag and then sets it back down while she finishes a thought. She walks toward the door and then turns back because she just remembered something. None of these moments feel dramatic. Each one individually feels like nothing. But the pattern, the repeated reaching for an exit she doesn't take, is one of the clearest signals of genuine desire that exists. There is something else that happens in these moments that is worth noticing. Her phone, in most cases, goes quiet. She is not checking it. She is not responding to notifications. She is not doing the thing most people do automatically when they are in a situation they want to escape. The phone that stays face down on the table or stays in her bag entirely while she is talking to you, that is her choosing you over every other claim on her attention in that moment. That choice is not nothing. Now, the most important misread of this sign is a serious one because it causes men to dismiss something real. When a woman lingers and then eventually does leave, it is easy to look back on it and think, well, she left, so clearly she wasn't that interested. But that is the wrong reading entirely. It is not that she left that matters. It is that she stayed so much longer than she needed to, and that every time leaving became available, she found a reason not to take it. The sign is not in the ending. It is in every moment she chose not to end it. This sign is also the one that, when combined with the first two, creates something unmistakable. Proximity gets her near you. Differential attention keeps her present with you. And the protection of shared time is her way of refusing to let what exists between you dissolve back into ordinary life. Together, these three things are not subtle. They are a very clear communication from a woman who does not yet feel safe saying what she actually feels, but is showing it in every way she can. One of these signs on its own might not mean anything, but when you start seeing two of them or all three, you're not imagining it. This is the part where it is worth slowing down and being precise, because the instinct many men have at this point is to either leap towards certainty or retreat entirely into doubt. Neither of those serves you. What serves you is the ability to read the pattern clearly and respond with the same calm, steady presence that a woman who is showing these signs is hoping she will be met with. A single sign appearing once is a data point. It is worth noticing, but it is not worth acting on dramatically. Two signs appearing with some consistency begin to form a picture. Three signs, appearing across multiple interactions and contexts, form something that is very difficult to explain as friendship, politeness, or coincidence. When proximity, differential attention, and the protection of shared time are all present, when she keeps finding ways to be near you, engages with you differently than she engages with others, and consistently refuses to let your time together end before it has to, she is telling you something. She is telling you quite clearly by the standards she is operating under. The question you are probably already sitting with is this: what do I do with this information? And that question deserves a real answer, not a deflection. What you do is simple, though not always easy. You stop dismissing what you have already been seeing. You stop explaining it away. You stop deciding, before you've gathered enough evidence, that you must be misreading it. The pattern is the permission, not to make assumptions, but to engage to be present, to meet the consistency she has been showing you with a consistency of your own. You do not need to overanalyze every interaction. You do not need to run mental scorecards or sit in uncertainty, cataloging every moment. What this understanding gives you is not a system, it is vision. The ability to see what is already being shown to you without filtering it through the noise of self-doubt or the habit of looking for something more obvious than what is actually there. What you have learned today is not a checklist. It is a way of seeing. 3 signs: the way she arranges closeness, the quality of attention she gives only to you, and the moments when she refuses to let what you share come to an end, are not separate behaviors with separate meanings. They are 3 expressions of the same underlying truth. She cannot fully suppress what she feels, and because she cannot say it plainly, she shows it in the ways that are available to her, in the ways that feel safe, in the behaviors she can always retreat from if she has to. The larger truth beneath all of this is quieter than most people expect. Attraction, for a woman, is not a loud thing. It is a careful thing. It is a series of small, consistent choices that accumulate into a pattern no one moment fully reveals. What you now have is the ability to read that pattern, not to use it, not to exploit it, but simply to see it, to no longer miss what was always being shown to you. You don't need to approach every interaction as a puzzle to be solved. What this awareness gives you is steadiness, the kind that comes from understanding rather than guessing. When you can see the signals clearly, you stop second-guessing yourself. You stop walking away from conversations that mattered. You stop mistaking her care for ordinary friendliness. Which of these 3 signs have you seen from a woman in your life, and which one surprised you the most? Tell me in the comments. I read every one of them, and the conversations that happen down there are often more honest than anything else on the internet. If understanding what women are actually communicating, not just what they say, but what they show, is something you want to keep developing, this channel is built for exactly that. Subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. In the next video, I'm going to show you the one thing most men do right after a woman shows these signs that quietly resets everything she was feeling. That one's important. Don't miss it.